Hi, well, as you can see, bench is now built. The thing I'm about to do is put some 2x4s coming up the back here to about yay high, so about 5-6 feet, so that I've got about 2.5-3 feet here for shelf space. And I'm going to put one 2x4 on the left leg, one over here on the right leg, and one in the middle coming up for supporting the middle of the shelf. Now, because the beams are on, the stringers are on the outside, I'll need to put a little bit of 2x4 in here just to space it out a little bit, I think, because I want to put the 2x4s so the 4 inches is coming backwards. What that'll do is allow me plenty of space to drop cables down the back and things like that without them getting tangled up if I need to. And what I'll do on the front of this is I'm going to put a piece of the 12-inch plywood that came off of the main desktop here up so that it stands about maybe this high, and that way I have something that I can actually screw a power strip to, and maybe some network cables and stuff like that, or network outlets and things. Just drill it right through so the cables are just running around the back. The vertical stringers, the reason I also want them 4 inches deep and only 2 inches wide, is so that the strength going into the table is the wider part of the 2x4. That way it'll be less likely to bend over time, because obviously, you know, you start putting your instruments and things on there, that's the last thing you want to happen, is for it to start bending on you. So anyway, I'm just going to go get the wood. I've got to measure the height of this just to make sure I'm not hitting the ceiling, because I'm actually touching the ceiling right now, so it's only sort of about 7 feet, something like that. So let me just go get the measure. I'll make sure what height I need, and then we'll be back screwing this thing together. Quick bit of measurement. So it's just under 3 feet to the top of the table, about half an inch less because it's a 3/4 inch ply. And we've got 6 feet. So if I make things 6 feet, that gives me about 3 feet up the top. It should be plenty enough for what I want to do. Maybe we'll make it, yeah, 6 feet. 6 feet it is. Be back in a minute. So I've got my 6-foot pieces of 2x4s. What I want, if you look at the end of these, you can see 2 inches by 4 inches. Rather than put it flat on the back of the bench where the thinner section would allow it to tip forward, I want to secure it sideways like this so that it will have a lot more strength. Now, in order to do that, I need to put another 2x4 to fill in the gap at the back of the bench at right angles like this. So I will screw through here onto this so that it is, you know, with quite a few screws down it. And then when I put it into the bench, I'll screw either side of this with a set of screws to hold it into the bench. And that should be plenty enough strength for this to do what I need it to do, to hold up all my equipment, etc. So, get my screwdriver and screws and get to work. It's always good to have some clamps. And everybody's out of the house and you got to hold things while you're assembling them. Your best friend. So what I also have is I don't want these to go necessarily right on the floor. There'll be plenty of strength, so the bottom stringer, the bottom of it is about 4 inches off the floor. So I could probably lift this up maybe by an inch off the floor. And then if I count the top of the stringer, so that way the weight can be carried right in the stringer, it's about 7.5 inches to the top of the stringer, because these are actually 2x4s, and that really means they're 3 3/4 inches. Don't ask me why they call them 2x4s. I guess that's the raw lumber before they trim it. So if I make this thing 7 inches from the bottom, I want to lift that up, so if it's an inch off the floor, yeah, if I make it just a little bit off, so if I make the shorter piece 7 inches up on the wood here, so it'll be 7 inches from the end of the wood, then it'll actually sit with the weight on this while I'm screwing it, which will make life a little bit easier. So I'll put one screw in and then I'll square it up afterwards. So to start with, I just need to mark the center of this piece of wood. Sorry, a little bit of sawdust as I was coming back out of the garage there from cutting this. So these are 3.5 inches, so I want to be 1 3/4 inches would be the center to mark. This just allows me to get it nice and center on the plank when I screw it on. Excuse the noise. Okay, that's those done. Now you'll see what I mean. And I just take it into here and drop it right there. It's just off the floor, so it's not interfering when I want to move the bench. And now I can just screw that straight to the leg, and that'll be nice and strong. Well, as strong as the whole bench is. So, one for each position. By the way, when you're selecting this wood at the store, one tip when you're selecting wood is to actually look down its length. So if you actually hold it, you drop it on the floor for this, but I'm just showing you here, and you look down the length, you can actually see any slight imperfections in the curve or warping of the wood will show up when you look down the length of it. So be selective when you're getting it, because obviously if the wood you pick is bent, then your shelves are going to be bent. And so that would be a bit of a shame after all the work you're putting in to building these things. Where the clamps come in handy. I'm just going to adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Down here. Righty there. So this will just sit literally right in here as part of the leg. I'll just take that to the edge. And then I can screw right through these into this part of the leg. And that'll be nice and strong. And the weight of it, of course, is being taken by the stringer, at least while I'm screwing it. And then it will be into all the timber here as well. So I'm just going to hold that there and put this clamp on. You see why this is handy. Because I can get that roughly in position. And it holds it enough that I can let go. So now the idea here is I'll put one screw in and then I'll adjust it for being square. So notice the top one here is in line with the edge of the leg. So I'm just going to put a screw here and drive that in. Now I already double checked my bench and it is square, so that should be, which it is. So now all I have to do now is adjust this to be square, because it helps if I loosen my clamp a little bit. Alright, that's nice and square now. So I'll just put my clamp back on and I'll put a screw once I clamped it. I'll just double check to make sure it's still square, which it is. So now I can put a couple of screws in the other side and that'll be that one set. I will go back and add more screws, obviously for strength. Okay, that's the post done. Let me just move the camera a bit so you can see. Zoom in. Right, so nice and secure. Now all the way down on each of the legs. So next thing is to put the backboard on. So I had, with this tape, move so you can see me. With this tabletop, it came as a 8 feet by 4 feet strip. I had a foot taken off because the average bench is about 36 inches and that suited my needs quite nicely, which meant I was left with a 12-inch strip. Now I had also got a second board which I cut into 16-inch strips, which is going to be the shelving up on here. But one of the issues I had was when I got the 12-inch, really it's going to be a little bit on the high side for a power strip, so I figured that 6 inches is probably better. So what I did was I trimmed this down, and the idea is this is just going to sit at the back of the bench like this, so that it becomes a nice back piece. I can put a power strip there, nothing's going to push off the back of this thing, so that'll be really handy for everything. And it's just going to take a few screws to put that in. So let me just rearrange the camera to a better position. I'm going to see if I can move this table, otherwise I might have to call for some help. Underneath style. Forgot about my daughter's picture being on the wall. Better move that out of the way before I can't get it out anymore. A couple of power strips on the back wall. I don't really want to block them, so let's move that in a bit. I can adjust the bench to the back. I'm now done for that. Now what we've got to do is more screwing. So you can probably see there, I guess so. What we have is the backsplash, effectively, which is going to run along here. This will keep the nice cleaner edge up top, less saw burns. That'll do nicely. There's my screws. Somebody was asking on the web why I drilled the screws from the top right through rather than putting shorter ones with some L brackets underneath. The reason for that is, as you just saw, if you've got to lift this thing up, there's a huge amount of weight with the legs. They're very, very strong, but of course that comes with a lot of weight as well. If I had screwed this up with smaller screws from the bottom, there'd be a high risk of me lifting the tabletop from the 3/4 inch plywood and just ripping the screws right out. This way I've got these big 2-inch long screws. They're going right through and very, very deep into the wood. Chances of me ripping it off now, nil. Okay, back again. What I got for my shelves, the local hardware store, these things. A little slot track that go up the posts, and then you have these angles, and they basically sit in, and that makes for quite a strong shelf. You can put some screws up through the holes in these brackets into your wood that's sitting on there to stop it coming off, or you could use some other fastening method if you wanted to. But the nice thing is you can adjust it about every 1.5 to 2 inches in height to suit the equipment you're going to put on it. Now for now I'm just going to put a full 8-foot long shelf right along it. I've thought about whether I'm going to split it in the middle, but if I do that I'll need to make this a bit wider, because right now it won't take 2 of these strips. So I have to put some 2x4s at a right angle again, or a piece of plywood running up there or something like that to stick them on. But I don't plan on doing that right now, and I'm just going to be putting these on. So here we go. More noise. So, one thing left to do, and that's actually put the shelves on. See if it sticks together. This is anti-Dave Jones. Instead of taking it apart, putting it together. Probably a little bit high on that one. I'll just stick this on the top and lower those a bit. The idea is the bottom ones you're going to put your scopes and things like that on, so you do want to leave a bit of room for your projects, but you also want to be able to easily get at them. So I'll just drop it down a notch. I'll probably get around to painting all of this at some point. But for now, this is looking good. And there's the other 16-inch piece of ply. I got one left in the garage for some rainy day. And there you have it. Move this along a little bit. So, let's put an instrument on, see what it looks like. I know, haven't put the screws in yet, but hey, you gotta try it out. It's a power supply, it's a heavy sucker. So, not bad. Can't forget the oscilloscope. Well, I think it's sweet. I'm going to have some great times doing some projects on this bench. So anyway, apart from a couple of screws in the shelving, and I'm going to put a little bit of trim in the front of this because it's a little bit sharp and I don't want to be dinging it, so I've got to pick up a little piece of hardwood just to tack on the front there. But that's pretty much the lab bench built. I like it. Hope you build yours, and if you do, send me a link to a picture. Or go to the Element 14 website. They've got a whole area right now in test and measurement where we're talking about building benches. That's what kind of inspired me to do this right now. So, anyway, see you next time.